Israel says 14 of its soldiers have been killed in Gaza this weekend, marking some of the heaviest troop losses for Israel since its ground operation began. There has been more heavy fighting, Israeli strikes hitting central and southern Gaza on Sunday. Israel says it has achieved almost complete operational control over northern Gaza. It's also said it's planning to expand its ground offensive against Hamas, considered a terrorist group by the EU and the US. Israel says that means shifting its campaign to Gaza's south, where most displaced Palestinians have fled. This, as the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says more than 160 people have been killed by Israeli forces in the past day.
They are doing what they can to pull anyone alive from under the debris. Every day, people across the Gaza Strip wake up to new scenes of devastation. Often, all they find is dead bodies, but sometimes they're lucky.
They rescued me from under the rubble to take me to Abu Yusuf al-Najjar hospital. They treated me there. May God protect them. It's destruction. The children were screaming. The children's mental health is affected. The injured were on the street. Me and 4 others were retrieved from under the rubble.
In the southern city of Rafah, an Israeli airstrike destroyed a house and damaged several others in a refugee camp. In nearby Khan Yunis, the attacks also flattened several buildings.
This area is designated safe. There are thousands of displaced, and a few meters away from us there's an office for UNRWA, where there are more than 40,000 displaced. To the east of us is the agency's clinic and schools, with each school housing no less than 6,000 or 7,000 displaced. This area in general is designated safe. This is the safety and security that Israel claims.
As calls for a ceasefire grow, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the fighting will continue.
The war exacts a very high price from us, but we have no choice but to continue fighting. So far, our forces have eliminated many thousands of terrorists. We are continuing with all the force until the end, until victory, until we reach all our goals.
His comments coming as Israel lost 14 soldiers in Gaza in 2 days. That brings the total number of losses among Israeli troops to 152. As the fighting continues, Hamas-run health officials say more than 20,000 people have been killed there.
Let's get across to Jerusalem, where journalist Sami Sokol has more for us. Sami, thank you for taking the time. Let's take a look first at Israel's claims to have taken almost complete operational control of northern Gaza, and that is now looking to focus efforts on the south. What can we expect from this? What does this tell us?
Well, we've seen that this control means that Israel has succeeded in breaking the chain of command within Hamas in the city of Gaza and in the surrounding area. But what Israel is facing is a kind of a urban guerrilla warfare launched by small cells, sometimes individuals who have been left behind, and they're continuing to fight the Israeli forces. So this means that there's no end to this war in sight. Israel is now going to focus more on the area of Khan Yunis. This is where the major battles are taking place, the major ground operations. After Khan Yunis, there's still the camps in the Dir el-Balah area. But it is difficult, as many analysts here are saying, to see how this war will actually end.
And we've heard that at least 14 Israeli soldiers have been killed in Gaza just this weekend. That's bringing the death toll to more than 150 since the start of Israel's ground offensive. This is obviously a very sensitive issue within Israel. Do you think that the rising death toll will affect support internally for Netanyahu's military campaign?
Well, I think one has to differentiate between the support to Netanyahu and the support to the campaign. And Netanyahu is not popular. He was not popular before the 7th of October, and his popularity has dropped down a lot. But by and large, the Israeli public does believe that the campaign should continue, that crushing the Hamas should not stop. And it also doesn't look the way the other international community is viewing the desperate situation of the Gazan population, the hunger, all of these things. The Israeli public is looking at it in a very different way. In fact, what we see, the public is a shift to the right. And what we are expecting to see is the rise of more hardline positions in this period.
Thank you so much for that update. That's journalist Sami Sokol in Jerusalem. We very much appreciate your time. Now, Israel's bombardment of Gaza has forced the cancellation of Christmas festivities in nearby Bethlehem, the biblical birthplace of Jesus. The city in the Israeli-occupied West Bank would usually be full of tourists and pilgrims. But the crowds are absent this year, as is the traditional large Christmas tree. Many of Bethlehem's residents are in mourning over the devastation in Gaza, which is just 50 kilometers away. We have our correspondent Jan Philip Schultz reporting from Bethlehem, and he's described for us how different the atmosphere there is this year.
Very different. No big celebration this year. It's an incredibly sad atmosphere here in Bethlehem. As you can see behind me, no big Christmas tree, no street vendors selling candy to the children, no music. The officials here said it's impossible to celebrate Christmas this year under those circumstances. All big churches that are present here said there is no moment of joy when so many people are suffering. Some say maybe it's also a moment to reflect on what Christmas is also about, the hope of a more peaceful world.